Are you out of your mind? Do you even know what kind of garbage you're selling? Do you want me to sue you? The angry customer shouted into the phone. Oh, here we go. And what a good start to the day. Beatrice thought wistfully, adjusting her glasses on the bridge of her nose. Could you please explain in more detail what the problem is? Beatrice asked. The customer continued to resent him, and Beatrice yawned sweetly. She wanted to sleep. She had been reading a new romance novel that had just come out all night. To the monotonous voice of the client, Beatrice fell asleep. When Beatrice opened her eyes, she saw several people in front of her. She stood in front of a man dressed in royal clothes, and on either side of her were people dressed in the costumes of the nobility. Try to answer again, Lord Eaton. What is your mistake? A man dressed in royal garb demanded. Beatrice had no idea where she was or what was happening. She was probably asleep and dreaming this strange dream. Can Lord Eaton answer the king correctly in 3 seconds? Baron Manhwa couldn't and was hanged, and no one could talk the king out of it. If you start to contradict him, you'll be head over heels. The crowd of nobles and the girls clamored around them. Stop grumbling. If the king hears, we'll definitely be in trouble, one of the nobles said fearfully. The king silently threw his dagger at Lord Eaton, striking his neck in the process. Have you noticed I only have 3 daggers left? The king asked Lord Eaton in a calm voice. I apologize, your lordship. I was wrong. In the middle of a betting game, I dared to block his majesty. The lord began to mutter words of remorse. Near the lord's ear, a second dagger slammed into the wall. From the conversations of the surrounding people, the girl realized that the king had told the losing team to pay for the discharge. If covering the cost for the king's drunkenness from the night's wages, one ruin would not be enough. Still, it's a familiar situation. The boss is a tyrant and a total dumbass. Beatrice thought to herself. Now you try it, said the king and pointed his dagger at Beatrice. What do you think Lord Eaton has manifested himself in? The king asked the girl. Beatrice realized that she had read about daggers and steaks and drinking and a knight named Eaton in yesterday's novella. Am I really dreaming about last night's novel? What if it's not a dream? Suddenly I was carried by some incredible force into the plot of the book I read? The girl thought to herself fearfully. Beatrice had been working as a counselor in a call center for several years. Her senses had atrophied due to the constant scolding of customers. Her only outlet was romance novels. If we talk about the plot of the last book I read, its main character was a princess of a small country. She was brought as a concubine of the main character of the emperor. It is worth noting that in the description, there was a warning that it was a tragedy and drama. At the climax of the novel, a rebellion broke out and the imperial palace fell. Afterward, the protagonist committed suicide right in front of the heroine. The book ended with the main character unable to get over the death of her lover, so she went insane. If the girl is in a book, she is facing the main character of the novel. This is the emperor of Hisronia, Cardan Zion. He has hair black as tar, and iris of his eyes are blood-colored. The book described him as a handsome man with a chiseled nose bridge and sculpted chin. The emperor's appearance was indeed like a work of art created by a genius. But unfortunately, he had a bad nature. The emperor was a tyrant bent on pleasure. In his time, he eliminated all his advisors without delay. The emperor was a rare womanizer who didn't miss a single skirt, and his inner world was not as beautiful as his outer world. You're not thinking about anything distracting right now, are you? Are you listening carefully to what I'm telling you? The emperor asked the girl, twirling another dagger in his hands. Yes, you're right. The girl hurriedly replied. She was afraid that if something went wrong, or if she said something stupid, she would be killed on the spot. I always knew you were the only one who understood me. Therefore, I believe that the death penalty would be a fitting punishment for this wrongdoer. Do you agree with me this time, too? The emperor asked again. Damn, and he's totally different from the people I usually deal with. My years of call center experience probably won't even help me here. The fate of this poor knight depends on my word alone. The girl could hear her heart pounding frantically with fright. What Lord Eaton has committed is definitely a grave crime, however, before the sentence is carried out. Shouldn't he be allowed to experience unimaginable torment? Cautiously, the girl began to speak. I move that the Lord who unjustly took away His Majesty's hard-won victory be demoted from General of the Guard to Private. I'm sure losing the post of General of the Guard, hard-earned, would be worse than death for Lord Eaton. Okay, that's what we'll do. Only, unfortunately, the sight of blood early in the morning has ruined my mood. Something needs to be done about it. The vigilante emperor said thoughtfully. Some of the nobles suggested that he invite dancers who came from the southern lands. I don't want to. Then the nobles suggested that he invite masseuses to help the emperor relieve his fatigue. Carden answered them that he did not wish that either. Isn't there no one standing in front of me? Suddenly, the emperor exclaimed. I don't know who it is, but that person is clearly unlucky. Beatrice thought to herself. Turning around, the girl realized that the eyes of everyone present were directed in her direction. Don't tell me the emperor is talking about me now. It can't be, Beatrice thought with a startled shudder. Princess Irina Valoa, you will have my attention today, the emperor thundered. Why me again? It's the second time he's approached me. How many times can it be? I know that there's no way I can get involved with this man. If he doesn't like it, I'll be a target for daggers. It would be a great honor if I could entertain you, but I'm not sure I can satisfy your fine aesthetic taste. Beatrice shivered at first. I am confused, so I suggest that we end our meeting at this point. With a frustrated sigh, the emperor said. When she left the throne room, Beatrice, who in this book was called Irina, leaned back against the door. Her legs were shaking with nervous tension. What a good girl I am, after all. I managed to survive this time, but it's still not human to move into someone else's body in the middle of such a scary gathering. The girl thought to herself. Tears of relief flowed down her cheeks. I remember in other novellas, the trapped girls woke up in more favorable conditions. Usually the girls opened their eyes in their bed. Beatrice thought to herself irritably. Wait, what did the emperor call me? Didn't he say Princess Irina Valoa? Then it turns out that I ended up in the body of that very princess? The girl froze on the spot in fright. Beatrice, aka Irina, walked over to the window and stared at her reflection. Irina Valoa was a minor negative character in the story. Although there were few episodes with her, Beatrice remembered that it was Irina who managed to calm the emperor, even when he swore at her. Now Beatrice had to smile at the emperor all the time, even if he treated her rudely. The fact was that Carden was used to Irina smiling at him all the time and treating him kindly. Although this minor heroine left a deep impression of herself, a sad fate awaited her. She once opposed the emperor's order to build a greenhouse for the protagonist because it was burdensome to the imperial budget. Since the girl disobeyed the emperor, she was executed. Well, this is horrible. All normal people end up in the bodies of the main characters. But why am I the only one to be transported into a character doomed to a quick death? Beatrice clutched her head in despair. And I'm also interested in one question. In the novella, Princess Valoa and the Emperor were in a normal superior-subordinate relationship. Nothing more, nothing less. So why then did he choose Irina to entertain him? Is there some hidden storyline I don't know about? But it's too early to guess. I have too little information. I need to see with my own eyes what kind of world this is first. Beatrice decided to explore the Emperor's castle and the surrounding areas. The world she saw parasitized the girl. It was extremely beautiful. Walking through the courtyard, Beatrice saw the wounded Lord Eaton being led by 2 guards under his arm. Upon seeing the girl, the lord and his attendants bowed to her. Beatrice had absolutely no idea how she should behave in such a situation. She did not know the rules of this world and its culture. There was little information about it in the book. Beatrice noticed that Lord Eaton had taken off his general's tunic. Still, her words had weight in this world. Even though it was a hopeless situation, Beatrice felt awkward in front of the man. Thank you, Your Excellency. If it weren't for you, I would have already fallen at the hands of the Emperor. I am indebted to you, Princess." Unexpectedly, Lord Eaton thanked the girl. He was so ridiculously robbed of the position for which he had worked all his life, and not only did he not hold a grudge, but he's thankful. The girl noted to herself with surprise. "If you need any help from me, don't be afraid to contact me." Beatrice offered the man. The words of the princess surprised the lord. He bowed his head low and thanked the girl for the offer. After that, the guards led the man further. Beatrice noted to herself that Lord Eaton didn't seem like a character who appeared only once in a book's plot. She was sure she would meet him again. "Princess Valoa, how glad I am to have found you after all." Beatrice heard a woman's voice behind her. "That's right. In this world, my name is Princess Irina Valoa." I remind myself again of Beatrice. "Come, as you requested, and I have prepared your outfit for the reception. You do remember that today is the official meeting of the Emperor and the monarch consorts from Taraki, right?" her maid asked the princess. "So wait, what's going on now? Just a couple of hours ago, I was just a regular call center employee, and now I'm going to a diplomatic reception, and to top it all off, I am the servant of a tyrant." Beatrice was still in a state of shock. Now I have absolutely no time left to explore the palace and experience the culture of this world. I have to hurry to get ready for the event. The maid said that the reception would take place in the evening, so they had half a day to spare. The girl said that she had prepared a costume for the meeting, which consisted of a vest and pants. The princess could find the suit in her office. "Great. And please remind me where my office is," asked Beatrice to the maid. She realized that it looked extremely strange from the outside, but she couldn't do it without the maid's help. "I got away with it this time, but where's the guarantee I'll be lucky next time?" Beatrice muttered to herself as she strode irritably through her office. "What do I do now? Can I go back to my world? While I'm here, how do I act? It's not like I don't understand what's going on around me. Am I really going to live under a tyrant who ruined an empire in 5 years? For starters, we need to get a grip and start getting into the princess's business. And I know she has a private space, this mansion. In the original, I noticed that many people treated the princess in a special way, which means she has a lot of influence and knows a lot. If I commandeer useful information, it's likely, I really hope so, that I'll be able to avoid death at the hands of the emperor." Examining the documents of Princess Valoa, Beatrice saw accounting accounts of the emperor. The mad tyrant was extremely wasteful. His family was on the verge of ruin. I suppose I'll meet the same fate as Princess Valoa. If, with the treasury so emptied, the emperor demands the building of another villa, I shall die quicker than the Princess Valoa in that novel. I've worked so long in a call center. Will I really die such a ridiculous death? Am I going to die like the princess in the original? To survive, I must replenish the state treasury. Also, I need to save up money for asylum and escape before the empire collapses. To avoid arousing suspicion, I will fulfill all of the emperor's dreams and desires. I will become an indispensable servant to him. The queen and I have requested a private audience with your majesty. We do not understand why Princess Valoa is here." Before Beatrice sat the king and queen of the state of Taraki. Their lands bordered the Hizronian Empire. "If I am not there, then who will check the emperor's dishes?" objected the king and queen Beatrice. The king of the neighboring state looked at the girl in surprise. "I must have said something wrong. I am Emperor Cardin's loyal dog. I shouldn't be acting so cocky." Beatrice decided to herself. "Do you not think, King Taraki, that the poisoning of His Majesty is something inconsequential? Do you wish to take responsibility for it?" In a whisper, the girl asked the king. She needed to stay at this table. "By no means, Your Majesty, I didn't mean that at all," exclaimed the king. "Of course you didn't mean anything like that. However, that's exactly what I meant." Beatrice decided to get a little cocky while the situation called for it. "Your Majesty, will you allow me to show you respect by inspecting your food? I want to assure you that my intentions are sincere." Beatrice addressed the emperor. "Very well, proceed." In a tired voice, the emperor said, "However, if you taste dishes that have poison in them, it will continue to make me uncomfortable. You won't be able to completely protect me from pleasant situations." Beatrice remembered that in the story of the book, before becoming emperor, Cardan had participated in wars of conquest and was known as one of the best swordsmen. He had a lot of courage, and the poisoning had only made him sick to his stomach. As she tasted each of the emperor's dishes, Beatrice hoped that the story would follow the plot of the book, and no one would want to poison Cardan. "Your food is fine. You may proceed with your meal." After tasting all the food on the table, Beatrice announced, "I am honored to be of service to your majesty." Beatrice strove with all her might to win the emperor's favor to herself. According to the plot of the book, she had little time left, so the girl decided to put aside all fears and do not delay. "Do you mean to say that because of your hard work, I can proceed to the meal without fear?" the emperor asked the girl. "However," said the emperor and picked up a table knife, "you know cutting steak is so tedious." The emperor looked intently into Beatrice's eyes. Beatrice dashed to the kitchen and carried the steak, already cut into small pieces. She knew that if she didn't fulfill the emperor's whim this very minute, she would have to kiss her life goodbye in a few seconds. "Still, the steak is splendidly cut, very comfortable to eat," praised the emperor. "I'm fine with everything, except it's a little hot indoors," mumbled the emperor. Beatrice grabbed the queen's fan from the table and began to fan the emperor with it. The girl ordered all the windows in the room to be opened immediately. "Your Majesty, do you like it better this way? Are you comfortable in this room now?" Beatrice inquired of the emperor. "This fan reeks of disgusting perfume. Stop waving it around," Cardan ordered. Beatrice ran to the window and threw her fan out of it. The girl decided to get rid of anything that might get on the emperor's nerves. "But it's my fan. It belonged to my mother and is a memory of her to me," the queen muttered. "Damn, there's a situation in my life again that needs an urgent solution. And how to get out of this situation?" The girl thought to herself fearfully. "I don't like that statue by the window. It looks too dazzling. Her brilliance cuts my eyes." Beatrice heard the emperor's indignant voice. "I'll move her right now," the girl exclaimed and began to push the pedestal on which the heavy statue stood. "Forgive me, Queen. I will return to you as soon as I have done my duty," shouted Beatrice. "I've changed my mind. Don't touch that statue. I think it should be contemplated. It fits in perfectly with the interior of the hall. The only thing that's jarring is its head," said the emperor to the girl. "I am ashamed of my actions, but I am no longer able to change anything. I have reached the point of no return. The task before me is to solve the problem without harming the beauty of the statue of the angel," Beatrice thought to herself wistfully. "This is the only thing I can do in this case. I have no other choice." Beatrice walked over to the king and removed the wig from his head. Afterward, the girl walked over to the angel statue and put the wig on her. The emperor clapped his hands. "This angel has become even more beautiful. As expected, Princess Valoa has exquisite taste," said Cardan, approaching the girl. Beatrice flinched slightly in surprise. "However, now there are other places that reflect light. I hope you can decorate them too." Beatrice was afraid to approach the king, for he was so angry that it seemed as if the capillaries in his eyes would burst. "Just a little more and I'll go crazy," she smiled and thought to herself. "Your Majesty, as I informed you in my letter, relations with the neighboring strange ones are unstable. Due to the escalated conflict in the border area, they have caused minor, but still, damage," said the king of the neighboring country to the emperor. "I'd like to get your opinion on what's going on. Now I understand the reason these people have endured humiliation. They want to offer Cardan, as ruler, to mediate the conflict." Beatrice suddenly realized. But their idea is extremely naive. This tyrant leads a carefree lifestyle. It's unlikely he'll want to resolve these differences. "I'm not rushing you for an answer. You can take your time, I'll wait. I truly believe this matter deserves your attention. The kingdom of Esseland also borders your empire as well," said the king after a moment's pause. Beatrice shuddered involuntarily when she heard the name of the kingdom. In the story of the book, it is the kingdom of Esseland that will lead the empire of Hysronius to collapse. By the way, Esseland is the homeland of the protagonist. There will be a banquet next spring. Arrange to meet there and discuss in a friendly manner. I believe that fruitful conversation will remove any misunderstanding, replied the emperor. It wasn't exactly what the king and queen wanted to hear, but still they didn't stand up to cross the emperor. Beatrice remembered that in the book she had read, a grand banquet was held one spring. Cardan and the protagonist met at the banquet. Is something wrong, princess? Suddenly the emperor asked Beatrice. No, not at all! The banquet is a tribute to His Highness's foresight, and I shall work in sweat to make the whole world know of you, exclaimed the girl. Beatrice knew that from the moment Cardan met the protagonist, the countdown to her execution would begin. She must hold out until next spring. When Cardan becomes infatuated with the protagonist, she will escape from this empire. I know it was rude of me, so please accept my sincere apology. Believe me, I am deeply ashamed of myself in front of you. Beatrice brought the king and queen a box containing his wig and her fan. By chance, I have spoiled things so dear to your heart. I am especially sorry that I had to disturb His Majesty. I would like to make amends to you. Beatrice could not allow Taraka, through her fault, to ally with Esland and attack this empire before its time. To prevent that, she was willing to trample her pride before these people. Maybe you have specific requests. Please let me know, said Beatrice the phrase she had learned at the call center. If it is the will of the emperor, I have one question for you. I have thoughts of expanding our silk industry in Tarak. The king muttered uncertainly. Yes, of course. I think it can be done without too much trouble. Beatrice broke out into a happy smile. Tarak silk was well known to Beatrice. It was what was used to make dresses for the protagonist. The silk was so expensive that the emperor's treasury was completely empty. The only thing Beatrice didn't understand was why she needed to expand a business that was already thriving. I am well aware that it will be quite a hardship on the emperor's position, as the material is not well known or tested, said the king to the girl. The king's words surprised Beatrice. She had not expected that there were still countries and kingdoms in this world where no one knew anything about this silk. Expanding production and strengthening trade ties with the empire will make our country stronger, and even Ekeland will show us respect. If the emperor helps us, I will supply him with goods at cost price. The king went on to say, It's a great idea. I can't think of a better one. An alliance with these people will help with my plan. Beatrice thought to herself with a smirk on her face. Beatrice shook the king's hand. It was good that she was present at this meeting. Now she had a trump card up her sleeve. Of course it won't be easy, but for our dear client we are willing to do anything, joyfully exclaimed Beatrice. After all, if one knew the content of the piece, one could get rid of many problems. Things were going very well for Beatrice. The only thing that annoyed her was that the emperor was now in her office. Why is he here now and not in some pub? He's throwing away my papers, which I've been neatly organizing all night. Beatrice thought dejectedly. I knew it. Your work is perfect. The emperor praised the girl. I'm still wondering why you saved Lord Eaton. After all, you were the one who told me to kill him a couple days ago. The emperor asked the girl. You said yourself that this person you ruled over earlier has gone over to the Empress Dowager, so he must be eliminated. Did the princess really have Lord Eaton in her charge? And why did the Empress appear so early in the story? She must reveal herself in the second half of the novel when she passes secret information to Iseland. Beatrice wondered to herself. Make an excuse that will resolve the situation, but don't help it again like you did with losing the polo game. I know you'll make the best decision as usual. I'm always running around on your errands. Why don't you finally think of me too? Suddenly the emperor asked, You remember about the contract, don't you? Cardan gingerly touched the face of an uncomprehending Beatrice. It's not the same as amusing yourself with humans. It's much more interesting," the Emperor said in a quiet voice. The more Beatrice got to know the princess, the more she realized what a conniving and sneaky person this woman was. "And what's the contract? I don't remember the original piece saying anything about it, but it's certainly important information." The girl decided that she would think about it a little later. Right now, she had slightly different concerns. The Emperor kept his disdainful gaze on the girl. She had to come up with a solution to this in a hurry to avoid losing her head. "I apologize for disturbing the Emperor. Right now, I will get rid of anything that annoys you," Beatrice exclaimed and bowed to the Emperor. The girl swung open the sashes of the window and climbed onto the sill. "I hope I survive. I saw a soft lawn under the window here. I won't die from the fall. I'll be bruised. At worst, I'll break something. All I have to do is sacrifice myself to please the Tyrant." Beatrice set herself up for the jump. The girl was ready to jump out of the window when suddenly the Emperor grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and pulled her into the room. Without much ado, the Emperor pushed the girl to the floor. "That's enough. Contract first, then jump all you want," the Emperor said in an angry voice. When Carden had gone, and Beatrice was once more alone in the study, she decided to go through the old papers of the princess once more. According to Carden, Princess Valoa had made, or planned to make, some kind of contract with him. The woman had such power that she could command the general of the Imperial Guard like a faithful dog. She also had the Empress Dowager under her control. However, if I am caught not being a real princess and knowing nothing about the treaty, then I will learn new types of execution. Beatrice was once again reminded of her unsightly plight in this book. Examining the documents of the Princess Beatrice found letters that the woman secretly exchanged with noble families. All the laws that had been changed since the princess had become prime minister benefited only the Valois family. The report, codenamed Assistance to the Emperor, transmitted by Lord Eaton, contained information about all the Emperor's movements. Now I know exactly why Carden looked at me that way. The real tyrant, after all, is not Carden, but Princess Valoa. As if to confirm the hidden power of the princess, Beatrice found several strange items in her study. A book called A Guide to Feeding Pigeons and an encyclopedia of poisonous herbs were among the work papers. In one of the drawers of her desk, Beatrice found a portrait of a young girl. The girl's face seemed familiar to her. She had seen her somewhere before. A young fair-haired maid rolled the cart with her dinner into the princess's study. The girl began to carefully arrange the dishes on the table. Beatrice watched the maid's work in silence. Exactly. The table is the same, and it's set just like it says in the pigeon feeding book. Beatrice finally realized what had been bothering her all this time. In the pigeon breeding manual, it was written that 3 out of 4 pigeons should be fed at dinner time. They are given an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert. The 4th bird remains hungry. The girl began to feed the birds, but the first number shuddered and died in her arms. Now Beatrice understood why there were cages of birds in the princess's study. She gave them her food. She used the birds to recognize poisoned food. Beatrice remembered that the salad she had given to the first number had a sweetish odor, and something similar she had read in an encyclopedia about poisonous plants. But even though the encyclopedia described everything in detail, there was no name for the poison itself and no mention of an antidote. The only method of dealing with the poison was to add it to food to build up resistance. Princess Valoa was trying to increase her resistance to poison, and she found a way. Little white doves. Beatrice had also decided to increase her resistance to poison. If the princess was doing it, there was a good reason for it. Most likely the princess was afraid that someone might poison her. But who would want her dead? Could it be the emperor who detests the princess? Or is it the Empress Dowager who is under her control? Beatrice decided to start with minor adversaries, so she visited Lord Eaton. Since the man had nearly died because of the princess's admonishments, he might have wished her dead. Lord Eaton stared at the princess, perplexed. He did not understand why she had come to him. Beatrice asked him if he had gotten used to his new position. "Yes, thank you, I'm fine." The lord bowed before the princess. Looking at me like that, like he really doesn't understand why I came to him. The girl thought to herself irritably. The last few days have been hard, so I have something for you. You haven't recovered from your wounds yet, so you need to take care of your health, am I right? I brought you some delicious and healthy food. Beatrice took out from her basket a salad flavored with poisonous plants. It was important for her to see Eaton's reaction to this dish. After the Empress Dowager's maid found out that I was working for you, I thought you would get rid of me, for I have done much wrong. Lord Eaton exclaimed, taking the dish of salad from the girl's hands. And you saved me from His Majesty and also care so much about my health. Thank you very much. I won't make that mistake again. So I'll taste the salad you so kindly brought me. The Lord pricked a leaf of lettuce on his fork and sent it to his mouth. After chewing the salad, the man suddenly coughed. How can you be so careless? Why do you just put everything in your mouth? I just picked some from the garden nearby and threw it on my plate. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Beatrice asked fearfully. She didn't want to hurt this man. I'm sorry, Princess. I was glad to see you, so I was in a hurry. I just had a leaf of lettuce in the wrong throat. But I am better now. I will chew your salad more thoroughly now, Lord Eaton said with a cough. If he intended to poison me, he would not have been so careless in tasting the food I brought him. We can conclude that Lord Eaton is innocent. The girl crossed one person off her list of suspects. I've wasted my time. But if Eaton doesn't want to poison me, then who is this person? The main thing is not to jump to conclusions, or you can make a lot of ridiculous mistakes. Beatrice muttered to herself as she returned to her office. It's true that the relationship between the princess and the emperor isn't simple, but there are many other political opponents besides the emperor. Suddenly, Beatrice felt weak in her legs. The poison had begun to take effect. At dinner, Beatrice decided to eat a little more salad than the encyclopedia recommended. She thought it would not affect her health, but it did not. The weakened Beatrice was wandering about her study and suddenly fell into the emperor's arms. What's he doing here? If Carden wants to kill me, now's as good a time as any. There's no one here, so he can easily hide all traces of his crime. Beatrice grimaced. Suddenly, the emperor lifted the girl in his arms. Beatrice was indignant and asked him to put her on her feet. She was able to walk on her own. Calm down, okay? The emperor said calmly. The girl froze in his arms. She constantly remembered to be extremely careful with this man. Beatrice woke up on the couch in her study. The emperor was standing next to her. He praised the girl for coming to her senses quickly. The emperor walked over to the table where Beatrice's unfinished dinner stood and poked some lettuce leaves on his fork. Carden chewed the salad with relish. What a psycho! Why is he eating that? If he eats too much, he might get poisoned. Excessive consumption of poisonous plants, dangerous even for him. Beatrice thought with horror. This salad has some cheap flavor, said the emperor and threw his fork on the table. So, can we stop pretending? Carden leaned over the girl. What is he talking about now? What does his words mean? Maybe he knows about the princess's method of developing immunity to poison. Will he no longer pretend to be good and simply kill me? Beatrice began to question herself. As he left the princess's estate, the emperor put his hand up. Immediately, his faithful raven perched on his shoulder. You've been watching what's going on, haven't you, as I asked you to do? Asked the emperor to the bird. The raven indignantly began to carp him an answer. As the raven flew away from the emperor on his business, he threw a folded piece of paper at his feet. The note said that the Empress Dowager was inviting Princess Valoa to her palace. The emperor ordered the raven to see to it whether the princess would accept this invitation or not. Whatever kind of person she was in the past, it's time to deal with her, mumbled the emperor. Beatrice bowed to the Empress Dowager and thanked her for the invitation. I'm very glad you were able to come to me after all. It's been so long since I've had you in my palace. I'm glad to see you again, the Empress Dowager exclaimed. Amelia Eslin was not Carden's biological mother. In the original, the Empress was not a key character. She only once passed state secrets to Esland, her home country. According to the story, The Empress Dowager was not a powerful person who could harm anyone, but still the girl had to be extremely careful with her. Beatrice did not know to the end what this woman was capable of. "I wish to greet you in a similar manner," said the Empress, and raised all her fingers up except her thumb. It was the welcoming gesture of Esland. It was mentioned several times in the novel. When the protagonist extended her hand to the Emperor in Eslandic, he immediately embraced her. Now, Beatrice was able to see this sign in person. Seeing the greeting, the girl fully realized that she was occupying someone else's body. "Having learned of your desire to visit me, I have prepared a sweet tea," said the Empress Dowager, and invited the princess to the table. "I hope she doesn't try to poison me today," Beatrice thought to herself, and took a small sip of tea. "Are you really so busy that you can't even spare me a few minutes?" Amelia asked. "Oh, forgive me, that was tactless of me. You didn't accept my invitation, citing busyness, and I had given up hope that you would ever visit me. It was very upsetting." Beatrice remembered that she had seen in the princess's notes that she had often been invited to visit by the Empress Dowager. Does this woman really want to get close to Princess Valoa? What does she want? She seems good-natured, but I must test her. Beatrice decided to herself. "It is considered bad manners to come to the house empty-handed, so I have a present for you. And please don't refuse it. I chose it myself. It's a tea brewed from Marisa flowers," Beatrice exclaimed, and took her gift out of her bag. "Melissa is a special flower. Isn't it the best idea to use fragrant herbs for tea?" With a smile on her face, the Empress Dowager asked. "You are right. Plants with a strong flavor are very good in tea, but I prefer the notes of Melissa. Unlike the roots, its flowers are not poisonous and can be eaten without fear," Beatrice assured the woman. Beatrice noticed that the girl who had helped her with making the tea trembled all over her body. The same girl had set the table for Beatrice on the first evening. The maid's behavior interested Beatrice greatly, and she decided to interrogate the girl when she had solid evidence. "Hurry up and fill the Empress Dowager's cup," ordered Beatrice to the maid. The maid picked up a kettle of tea, but stumbled and poured the contents onto the floor. The maid fell on her knees in front of Beatrice and began to apologize to her for what had happened. "Are you okay?" Amelia asked fearfully. "I'm fine. Fortunately, the tea has already cooled, so I'm unhurt. I wish I could stay with you longer, but I need to pick out an outfit for an upcoming meeting," replied Beatrice to the woman, and hurriedly excused herself. Beatrice noticed how the Empress's two maids looked at each other. From this, the girl concluded that it was Amelia who wanted to poison her. "I'm sure it was the Empress Dowager who bribed the maid to regularly slip me poison. It remains to be seen why. What does Amelia gain from the death of a princess?" Beatrice thought to herself. In parting, the Empress asked Beatrice to visit her as often as possible. She also told the princess not to trust the Emperor blindly. "It's hard for me to understand what the Empress Dowager is really thinking. I still haven't found out why the princess held back Amelia. There's no record of it in the documents. Lately, I'm starting to feel like I'd sooner die of poisoning than execution. One good thing, I finally found out who's behind this. Now all I have to do is keep an eye on the Empress Dowager." The girl looked out the window and saw the Emperor talking about something with her maid, who was serving tea at a meeting with the Empress Dowager. What's going on now? Isn't this girl an accomplice of the Empress? Why is she alone with Carden, and even late at night? What horror is going on around me? Beatrice began to think that she was gradually going mad. She saw every person as an enemy. Maybe Carden wants to poison me. Amelia told me not to trust him for a reason. I need to leave the palace as soon as possible and try to keep myself safe. "Yes, Your Majesty, as your loyal servant, I am traveling to find out how things are going in the Empire," confirmed Beatrice. The Emperor irritably threw a stack of papers at the girl and allowed her to go on her way if she had nothing else to do. "The state coffers are emptying every day, and I must find the reason for this," explained Beatrice the purpose of her trip. "You're leaving because of money, aren't you? Is there a person in the country who doesn't know about your obsession with money?" the Emperor asked the girl. Beatrice would love to escape from the Emperor right now, but she was sure that if she decided to run away, she would not last long and would die. She did not know the country and its customs. She did not want to act rashly. It was better to calculate everything in advance. You are worthy of exceptional luxury unavailable to other monarchs. Most importantly, while traveling, I will tell one and all how much you do for the Empire. Beatrice hurriedly put herself into advisor mode. Your name will go down in history, for everyone will know of your generosity. About my magnanimity? Angrily muttered the Emperor. Beatrice realized that the atmosphere in the room had changed dramatically. Something had gone wrong. Magnanimity? Yes, that would be quite good, said the Emperor, and his eyes flashed with an unkind light. Most likely, the Emperor thought that the girl was just mocking him. Damn it. I have to get the situation settled as soon as possible before the Emperor loses his temper. Beatrice began to quickly run through the options in her head to solve this problem. Of course, you are already quite a just ruler, but I want to spread that opinion among your subjects. The girl began to mutter fearfully. The Emperor rose leisurely from his seat and approached Beatrice with slow steps. The Emperor lifted the girl's face by her chin and looked her carefully in the eyes. Go, since you want to. Do as you wish, which is what you usually do. In a calm voice, the Emperor told the girl. When the carriage was ready, Beatrice hurried to get into it. She wanted to get away from this place as soon as possible. The Emperor watched the departing carriage through the window. Last night, the Emperor learned that one of the Empress's maids wanted to poison Princess Valoa. Your Majesty, you know I would do anything for you, the girl confessed to Cardan. Funny. You wanted to win my favor by scattering a few blades of grass? Tell the Empress Dowager that the princess's life belongs to me. Following the princess's carriage, Cardan sent his raven. I need you to find out what the princess is up to. To begin, Beatrice traveled to a land called Paradise Grounds. We have elderberries here and gooseberries in that field over there. The local farmers reported to Beatrice. Looking at the consternation in the eyes of the local Baron Hanier, Beatrice realized that the princess had come to these lands before, only to reprimand her subjects. It's going to be quite a hassle if the Baron keeps shaking in front of me like a bunny. I'm the mistress of this body now, so it's time for a change. Beatrice decided. It's hard to think of a reputable bakery that doesn't use your berries in their baked goods. You are very enterprising to have been able to develop barren land in such a short time. The girl praised the Baron. To tell you the truth, we plan to plant a new kind of berry this year. It's called blueberries. It makes a very tasty jam. Baron Hanier shared his ideas. Are those really the blueberries from the original? Beatrice wondered. There were only a few moments of the protagonist's meals in the novel. In one scene, the Emperor was angry that because the blueberry crop was failing, his favorite woman was unable to enjoy the delicious berry. On that day, he ordered Baron Hanja's head to be cut off. How can you just kill a man with nothing but berries on his mind? He's never hurt anyone, ever! Horrified Beatrice. Baron Hanier, next year, if you go to the southern continent for blueberry seedlings, take your time coming back. Stay there longer. Beatrice asked the Baron. The Emperor heard a raven knocking on his window. And you're back quickly, said the Emperor, letting the raven into his room. The raven flew up to the newspaper lying on the table and began tapping on it with his beak. So there are conversations like this going on between the Baron and the princess? Asked the Emperor's bird. The raven carchered several times in response to him. I sent you to find out the situation and you overhear gossip? The Emperor flicked the bird on its beak. In any case, to be having conversations about traveling at a time like this is extremely suspicious. Is she really trying to run away with her lover? I never thought she was such a rascal, Cardan said thoughtfully. The Emperor took a black cloak from his desk chair and put it on himself. If you have decided to leave me, then the terms of the contract must be honored to the end. Isn't that so, Princess Valoa? The Emperor addressed the girl in his mind. Good morning, Princess. Did you sleep well tonight? A cheerful Baron ran up to the girl. Yes, thank you very much for your concern. The girl replied with a smile, but it was a deception. Last night, she couldn't even sleep a wink. The girl was checking the expense books of this place. The Baron's papers turned out to be perfect. Nothing to pick on. Eaton probably didn't sleep well tonight either, but he looks as good as anything. Beatrice glanced at her escort. The girl couldn't understand how the Lord was able to secretly follow the order to steal the documents without even saying a word. Even for a baron, it wouldn't have been easy. Suddenly, the girl felt a foul odor hit her nose. Baron Hanier explained to Beatrice that they have been having water quality problems lately. Upstream, from the Marquis of Sherrington's estate, sewage was flowing into the river. All this has caused the fruit trees growing next to the river to wither. All of this isn't normal. Aren't these trees precious to the guests? Not even for the Baron himself? Beatrice exclaimed, grabbing the Baron's hands. Don't worry, Baron. As Prime Minister of this nation, I will solve this problem. I will show you the way to a bright future with fruit trees. The girl didn't know that the Emperor was watching her from the tree. You are mistaken. It is not love. The princess is just being pleasured by the Baron. If she was really in love, she would have a very different look on her face, said the Emperor to his raven. Much obliged to you for such a grand dinner. Beatrice thanked the Marquis of Sherrington. Feel free to drink to your heart's content, replied the Marquis to the girl. There are a lot of different dishes on the table, but you can count the meat dishes on your fingers. And the wine bouquet isn't very good either. What can't be said about the Marquis's clothes? Everything is needlepoint. The girl noted to herself. Apparently, that's why his ledgers look really weird. We should try to catch him somehow. How has the estate been lately? Beatrice asked. Oh, don't even ask. The repeated crop failures are making it harder and harder to collect taxes from the landowners. The Marquis complained to the princess. The farming situation on the estate nearby, on the other hand, seems to be doing quite well. There, the fruit trees along the riverbank are growing very well, said Beatrice to the Marquis. Wherefore, Marquis Sherrington, what do you think of monopolizing the berry business? We are talking about berry crops. Because of their short roots, the fruit requires a lot of water. Where did the Baron get it from? Did he really use the water from my river without permission? Marquis wondered. Look at him. He's already got his hands on the river, Beatrice thought to herself. Since his berry business thrives on the river water from your land, the profits are yours. I can help you get it, Beatrice offered. To tell you the truth, I have an idea. I suggest you build a dam. Then the Baron will no longer be able to grow berries on his land. And you, Marquise, will make your own berry business thrive with the dam. Truly, they say there is no limit to your wisdom, the Marquis exclaimed joyfully. However, think carefully, Marquis Sherrington. The cost of building the dam is very high. Will you be able to cover all the costs after a few bad harvest years? Asked the girl. But the prosperity of your lands is like the glory of the entire empire. If you provide a few documents, the empire will provide you with financial support at low interest rates. What documents do you need to provide? The Marquis enthused. You should show me your tax returns, a list of your properties, certificates of source of income, details of all transactions, and the like, Beatrice explained. These are all the documents I can show you. You can see for yourself that the situation on my estate is not the most favorable, exclaimed the Marquis after an audit of all his funds had been conducted. Isn't it because you secretly keep your money abroad? Beatrice asked. What are you talking about now? Marquis wondered. Eaton walked over to Beatrice and handed her the ledger. When he saw the ledger, the Marquis was startled and froze in place. He was surprised that this girl had the book he had hidden in the safe in her hands. Leafing through the ledger, Beatrice noticed that the Marquis was secretly transferring his net profits to Easeland. What would happen when the Emperor found out? The Marquis fell on his knees in front of the girl. He begged for mercy and promised to do whatever she asked him to do. I have just the solution for you. I'll cover all the construction costs, but you'll have to pay the tax arrears. You will also turn over to me all the funds transferred to Esland, demanded Beatrice. After Beatrice dealt with Paradise Grounds, she continued her journey, and I'm replenishing the state coffers and raising money for my escape. I really hope things continue to go as smoothly as this. Suddenly, the carriage rocked sideways. When the carriage stopped, the girl hurried to get out of it. The coachman explained to her that the road ahead was rough, so it would be difficult to ride the carriage. He suggested that the girl continue her journey on horseback. "I have chosen the most docile horse for you. I hope you like her." Ethan led the red mare over to Beatrice. "A horse for me, for a 21st century man who has never ridden a horse in his life. Moreover, isn't it a rule in romance books to take the easiest route in such situations?" Beatrice thought to herself doomfully. "You've loved horseback riding since you were a child, so I think this won't be difficult for you," said one of her guards. "It can't be helped. We'll have to ride a horse," Beatrice grumbled as she climbed onto the animal. The girl noticed that she was able to control the horse quite easily. Apparently, the princess's muscle memory was still intact. It was not as bad as it might have seemed in the beginning. Suddenly, the horse reared up and abruptly then spurred into the depths of the forest. "There's obviously something wrong with this animal," the frightened Beatrice thought to herself. "Most likely this horse was given some kind of medicine by someone. It absolutely disobeys me. What am I supposed to do now? Will I really die here?" Frightened, the girl thought to herself. Carden saw the princess riding a red mare at breakneck speed, and the emperor followed. The emperor caught up with the princess and grabbed her mare by the reins. The horse came to a halt again. "You can't let go of the reins, no matter how scary it gets," said Carden to the girl. The emperor helped the frightened girl down from her horse to the ground. "Thanks to you, I'm still alive. I want to thank you. Could you please introduce yourself?" The frightened Beatrice didn't recognize the emperor. Firstly, she was afraid to look around, and secondly, his face was hidden by a deep hood. "You're welcome. I was just passing by, saw that you were in trouble, and decided to help you out. Also, I think you better take a look at this," said the girl to the emperor. The man pulled a piece of glass from under the saddle. He assumed that it was a piece of glass that had caused the accident. "No, it's not an accident. Someone was definitely trying to kill me," Beatrice thought to herself as she scrutinized the shard of glass. Her guards ran up to Beatrice. They frightenedly asked the girl if she was all right. Beatrice explained that she was fine thanks to a passing traveler. Eaton bowed to the princess and said it was his fault, for it was he who had chosen this horse for the girl. "It had nothing to do with you, for the horse carried on its own." Beatrice hid the shard of glass she had found under the saddle behind her back. Eaton took off his tunic and threw it over the girl. "You look tired. Should we develop the camp?" Eaton asked the girl. Beatrice agreed, as she was indeed very tired today. "This shard is whacked off so that it can be attached to the saddle. It was definitely committed by someone in my entourage. But who is trying to kill me after all? Who am I in the way?" Beatrice wondered. Suddenly, the pigeons in the tent started screaming loudly. Turning around, the girl noticed a man swinging a sword at her. Beatrice dodged at the last fraction of a second. The girl was on the run. Before the girl could jump out of the tent, the man with the sword grabbed her by the scruff of the neck. Princess Veloa was doing the right thing. Instead of saving others because of useless sympathy, I should have trusted her judgment, having survived every possible attack. Beatrice thought wistfully to herself as she looked at the man leaning over her. The girl was held firmly by the scruff of her neck by Lord Eaton. Suddenly, the emperor burst into the tent and pushed Eaton away from the girl. Carden drew his sword from its sheath. Eaton decided not to mess with the emperor in battle, so he hurriedly jumped out of the tent. "He can't get over the mountain that easily. He probably ran to the wagon," said Beatrice, grabbing her rescuer by the cloak. "Just don't kill him. There's something I need to find out from him." Sometime later, the emperor brought the bound Lord Eaton to Beatrice. He stunned all the guards. "You should be careful. This is an unusual man," the emperor warned the girl. "That's why no one came to my scream. It turns out Eaton stunned everyone." The girl was extremely angry with the lord. She wanted to tear out every hair on his head. "Lord Eaton, explain to me why you did such a thing. I know better than anyone that you are incapable of such a thing. Who ordered you to kill me?" Beatrice asked. Lord Eaton was silent. He did not utter a sound. "If you keep quiet like this, I'll have to turn you over to the court as a criminal," Beatrice warned. At the girl's words, Eaton tensed. When the guards led Eaton away, the Emperor told Beatrice that it would be more prudent to kill the Lord on the spot without waiting for the court's decision. Of course he's right. But whatever's going on, I still don't want to kill people. It's not like I'm Princess Valoa. I'm just a call center employee. Beatrice thought to herself. I am grateful to you for saving me twice, Your Majesty. The girl bowed low before the Emperor. I knew there was nothing to hide from you, Carden said, pulling the hood off his head. And yes, saying embarrassing things like that to me is not your style, so keep your thanks to yourself. If it weren't for the contract, I'd gladly leave you here to die. Your Majesty, you are an example to all in how to follow the terms of the treaty, the girl said to him with a smile. It seems I've done all I can, so I'll take my leave, the Emperor said to the girl and put his hood back on. Wait, it's getting dark already. Why don't you spend the night and then set off tomorrow? Suggested Beatrice to the Emperor. I've been on the verge of death twice just today. What if there is a third assassination attempt on me? If I die, our agreement with you will be broken. And you've been traveling back and forth for nothing because of me. Beatrice grabbed Carden by his cloak without letting him get away. Princess, I can't believe it. You're going to ask me to stay with you now? Surprised Cardan. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared a better tent. Feel free to use my humble bed. Beatrice motioned for the Emperor to enter her tent. That's what I was going to do. The Emperor walked over to the bed and sat on it. Then I'll sleep here on the floor. Beatrice sank down on the rug beside the bed. The girl forbade herself to think of the Emperor in a decent light. He was not a man, but a statue with a skeletal character. Beatrice awoke to a wild cold. She was shivering all over her body. And he's lucky to be in my bed like nothing happened. Beatrice thought irritably to herself as she looked at the sleeping Emperor. Beatrice began searching around the tent for something else to throw on. The Emperor woke up to the noise. Why are you always poking around? The Emperor asked irritably. Never mind, though. Lie down, said the Emperor, rising from his bed. Seeing the girl's confusion, Carden grabbed her arm and threw her on the bed. I don't want to hear you sigh, so go back to sleep in bed. Carden bellowed irritably. But how will I take your sleeping place? What if you get sick? Asked Beatrice, snuggling up. The Emperor noticed that the girl looked a little too happy to say that. Well, since you're so worried about me and my health, then let's lie down together, Carden suggested. The bed is wide enough. And since you're quite worried about me, it looks like you'll be upset if I don't lie down next to you. The Emperor bent low over the girl. Beatrice remembered that in the novella, he had been described as a promiscuous, womanizing man. If you still want to sleep on the floor, I won't hold you back. Carden lay down beside Beatrice and fell fast asleep. The girl could not sleep a wink. She was embarrassed to be in bed with the Emperor. Looks like I made a mistake after all. I wanted to please the Emperor again, but I've gotten myself into such an awkward situation. When Carden awoke, he found the princess sleeping sweetly on his chest. What is that woman up to again? Out of the blue, she wouldn't help a baron from whom there is no benefit. Nor would she antagonize the leader of the local aristocracy, the Marquis of Sherrington. The Emperor had known the princess for many years. Her actions have always been a mystery. And most importantly, the former princess would not have behaved this way with me. You clearly have some cunning plan, Irina Valoa, whispered the Emperor, removing the girl from his chest. The Marquis Sherrington handed the Empress Dowager a note, telling her that the accumulated money from the shadow funds he would have to hand over to the Princess Valoa. I told you that woman loves money to no end, Amelia smirked. Her maid came to the Empress Dowager and told her that it had been overheard that the Princess Valoa was on her way to the estate of the Margrave of Gesbon. Great, we have our people there just now. Tell them to get ready to receive her. It's a shame, though. I was hoping we'd come together as skillful schemers. By the way, is Carden back yet? Amelia asked the maid. Yes, he said he's going to go party in more remote areas this time. According to him, there are no places left in the capital that he hasn't been to, so His Majesty went to look for women in other areas, replied the maid. And just how did such a moron end up on the imperial throne? With a satisfied nod, the Empress Dowager said, "And if only my dear son had been alive, this would never have happened." When Beatrice awoke, the Emperor was no longer around. The first thing the girl decided to do was to feed her pigeons. If they hadn't made a fuss yesterday, there was no telling how the events of the evening would have ended. "So you were able to bring these birds even to the cold lands?" asked the Emperor, who entered the tent. "And I'm prepared. I even brought my bird heater with me. We're with them all the time, so I've gotten attached to it." Beatrice lifted the bedspread, revealing a small stove under the table designed to heat the birds. "So we were freezing all night last night, and she was heating pigeons with the stove." The Emperor thought to himself, gritting his teeth. Beatrice saw the anger on his face, but she didn't understand what it was that the Emperor didn't like again. "Excuse me, honored customer, or rather, your majesty. If you tell us what is bothering you about the heater, it will greatly help in improving our quality of service." Beatrice blurted out, "That's enough, as agreed. I've been here until morning, and now I'm leaving. You can explain to your companions yourself sometime what is going on here." The Emperor bellowed and left the tent. "Where's he going in such a hurry? He'll come back when the time is right, though." Beatrice muttered. To relax a little after a busy evening and night, the Emperor went to the nearest pub. "I have not seen you here before. What fates brought you to our land?" A blonde-haired woman approached the Emperor and put her arm around his waist. "I'm looking for beautiful ladies. I've had enough of the capital's women." Carden answered the girl. "You're a joker, too. Well, if you're looking for a woman, then how about spending this night with me?" Looking appealingly into the Emperor's eyes, the girl said. Out of the corner of his eye, the Emperor noticed that a man in a long, dark cloak was watching him. "It's hard for me to say no to a woman, so I accept your offer." In order to live up to his title of a ladies' man, the Emperor brought the girl to a private room. There, he asked her not to touch him. The Emperor knocked the girl out and gently placed her on his bed. All that was left was to wait for the girl to come to her senses. "That man saw my recent shenanigans, so he'll calmly return to the Empress Dowager and report what he saw." Carden thought to himself, "What kind of pores do I have to act like this? This whole thing is starting to piss me off." Her guards came to Beatrice and confessed that Lord Eaton had escaped. "The Lord is incredibly skilled, so the wars guarding him have been rendered helpless. Maybe we should organize a search party before it's too late," suggested the guard. Beatrice had seen what the Lord had done to the men guarding him, so she gave up the pursuit. Even if they found him, they would be unlikely to tackle him. Beatrice feared that the Lord would simply dispose of his pursuers. Though he was hurt a few times in the fight with Carden, it's a miracle we were able to hold Lord Eaton for so long with our forces, Beatrice thought to herself. The girl knew that a true princess would have acted differently. She would have killed the Lord without a second thought if he posed any danger to her. But Beatrice, of course, is not a princess, so she forbade to pursue the Lord and ordered to deal with the wounded. After rendering first aid to the injured, the girl together with her subjects went to the nearest village to settle there. "I'm sorry, Princess. The village is very small, so there's nowhere else to stay but this inn," said the guards to the girl. And Beatrice needed nothing more than a bed and a bath. Suddenly, the guards fell to their knees in front of Beatrice. The girl fretted that their fresh wounds might open up and then fester after infection set in. Beatrice ordered them to their feet. "We missed an assassin. Why won't you punish us? Or are you giving us time to heal our wounds so that you can properly punish us later?" the head guard asked. Beatrice realized that if she acted extremely soft with these people, her authority would be shaken. "Yes, you are right. I will punish you upon my return to the palace. Therefore, from now on, there should be no such mistakes. But who knows? Suddenly, the zeal and sincerity of the guard will soften me, and I will forget about today's incident. Therefore, do not talk idly and concentrate on your treatment." "Yes! We will protect you at the cost of our lives!" the guards exclaimed. "Your room, Princess Valoa, is located on the second floor at the end of the corridor." the innkeeper explained to the girl. Beatrice was very sleepy, so she had one desire to shower quickly and collapse into a soft bed. Sure, this inn is noisy because of the inn on the first floor, but it's just paradise compared to the tent, the girl thought to herself. Suddenly, a half-dressed emperor jumped out of one of the rooms. The man resented the fact that there was no hot water in the room. "Your Majesty?" Beatrice whispered in surprise. "Princess Valoa!" Carden marveled. "Didn't expect to run into you again," Beatrice said with a smile. Walking past the emperor's suite, Beatrice noticed a blonde-haired girl sleeping on the bed. Carden began to make excuses that the girl was just sleeping. "Yes, of course I understand. The case is tedious," Beatrice said with a smirk. "I'm adjusting to your stupid act, so don't get me wrong," the emperor hissed angrily, pushing Beatrice against the wall. "What play are we talking about now? Why is the emperor adjusting himself to the princess? What was this woman really up to? Is it really the terms of the contract he mentioned earlier?" Beatrice wondered. "It's getting late. Time to go to bed. I'm afraid if we keep standing in the hallway, you might get sick," said Beatrice to the emperor. The contract conversation can't continue, otherwise the emperor will realize that the girl knows absolutely nothing about their contract. "You don't believe me," the emperor said in an affirmative tone. "What makes you think I would abandon Eleanor like anyone else?" asked the emperor. "I've completely lost the thread of the conversation. Who's Eleanor? She's probably the girl in the portrait," Beatrice concluded from what she had heard. "This tyrant, who changes women like gloves, only walks a tightrope in front of Princess Valoa because of one man. And why am I making excuses to you like a fool?" said the emperor and entered Beatrice's room. "But this is my room, isn't it?" Beatrice said in an uncertain voice. "I know, it's just that the bed in my room is already taken. If you want, you can lie next to me like you did yesterday," replied Carden to the girl. "It's been so long since I've had a proper bed," Beatrice thought to herself with despair as she looked at the closed door of her room. "Okay, everything was fine yesterday. Could something really have happened? Why did the emperor's mood change so drastically?" The emperor sat on the bed next to a sweetly sleeping Beatrice. Suddenly, Carden heard a light tap on the window. His faithful raven returned to him. The bird held a folded piece of paper in its beak. There were a few words in the note. Escape, wounded, treatment, diversion. I put in so much effort and he's just missed so easily? And I have absolutely no idea what reason this woman had for helping the wounded, mumbled Carden. "Fireplace, how warm you are. It's so nice to have a warm fireplace around. I have a dream of never parting from you, fireplace," Beatrice whispered in her sleep. The emperor stared at the girl in surprise. She was striking him more and more every day. He had absolutely no idea what she intended to do next, and he didn't like it. Lately, Carden couldn't calculate her moves. When Beatrice arrived in Gesban County, she was personally greeted by the owner of the house. "I am honored to meet you, Princess Valoa." The Margrave of Hisronia, Count Gesban, exclaimed loudly. "The road must have been difficult, so please come into my house," offered the Count. "I noticed your knights have their wrists bound. Missing a captured assassin, I'm surprised their hands and feet are still intact." In a quiet voice, the emperor said to the girls. The girl had to tell Carden that these people were useful to her for now. She decided to keep them with her for a while. "I didn't know the princess was so gracious," Carden remarked with a smirk. "Hey, you hooded brat. What are you thinking about, bothering a busy man? Don't hesitate and take the princess's horse to the stables," ordered the Count to Carden. The man did not know that this cloaked man was the emperor himself. Beatrice looked fearfully at the irritated Carden. The girl was afraid that the Margrave would be executed after such words. If the Count was killed, there would be no one to guard the northern borders of the empire. "I'll take my horse to the stable myself," Beatrice exclaimed fearfully. The Count asked the girl not to make up any nonsense, but to leave the job to his servants. "It's a beautiful horse that I appreciate very much. I'll feel more comfortable if I take care of it myself." "Well, if that's the way you want it," the Count muttered incredulously. It was very cold in the Count's manner. The man explained that the building had been built as a fortress, so it had a weak heating system. "Well, you see your mistress is cold. Why don't you give her your cloak?" Once more, the Count addressed Carden. "Well, why does that man keep picking on Carden? Does he even realize how many times he's already crossed the line? I need to change the topic of conversation as soon as possible so as not to annoy the Emperor." Beatrice thought doomedly. "By the way, the fortress is so spacious, but it has absolutely few servants. Do you prefer silence? Is that why you reduced the number of servants?" the girl asked the Count. The man stood silent as he did not know what to answer her. "As Prime Minister, I came here to explore the difficulties of each estate, so you are welcome to share with me what is troubling you." "There is absolutely nothing that bothers me. For a generation, my family has been doing what it is supposed to do," Count Gesban replied to the girl. "However, each possession I visited had its own problems. For example, in the Chania estate, farming was difficult because of the dirty water. I don't believe that you have absolutely no difficulties," said Beatrice to the Count. Reluctantly, Count Gesban confessed that recently he had a problem that made his head spin. It turns out that people have been disappearing on his property for a year now. "What do you mean, disappearing? You mean they're moving somewhere?" Beatrice clarified. "No, they disappear in an instant as if they've been kidnapped. The number of missing persons last month has reached 100, replied the Count. "Is this really the beginning of the story? It was the disappearance of people in one of the Earl's estates that started the novella," frightenedly thought Beatrice. In the original story, slave traders secretly kidnapped people and sold them on the black market. As the tyrant emperor condoned this, the slave trade expanded every year. As a result, the citizens of the empire grew tired of tolerating it and revolted. Beatrice hadn't expected to encounter this story so quickly. There was nothing left for the girl to do but to solve this problem as well. "Really? Princess, you decided to investigate this case on your own?" The Count marveled. "Of course I will investigate the matter, for the closer the collapse of the empire comes, the shorter my life. To buy time to escape, I need to delay the development of the original story, and there's nothing left for me to do but stop the slave trade." Beatrice thought to herself. The Count ordered the best alcohol to be brought for the princess. The girl hesitated whether she should drink in broad daylight. "No need to refuse, your lordship. When else can one drink, if not on such a fine day?" The Earl continued to insist. "Hey, you slippery type! Come here and pour your mistress a drink!" Again the Count turned to Carden. "You'd rather have a handsome guy pour you alcohol than some old man like me," whispered Beatrice in the ear of the Count. The girl froze on the spot in horror. "Since the princess wishes me to court her, who am I to cross her?" Smiling wryly, the Emperor said and bowed before Beatrice. "By the way, why don't you take off your outer clothes indoors?" the Count asked Carden. "I like it better when that man is wearing a cape, so I forbid him to take it off. And anyway, I have a fetish for the jawline, so let him stay in the hood," Beatrice exclaimed. "But come to think of it, your servant still hasn't introduced himself to us." The Count continued to bend his line. "My last name is Rowania, and my name is Nan," replied Carden, accepting the bottle from the Count. Beatrice was horrified by Carden's words. "If you translate this name and surname into Kizran language, then literally it would be, 'I am not a fireplace.' Did I mumble something about a fireplace in my dream? And it was on that cold night that I kept dreaming of a warm stove." "Nan Rowania, a rather unusual name," the Count muttered thoughtfully. "Since it's so unique, I hope you won't soon forget it," whispered Beatrice to the Emperor. No longer able to tolerate such a strong emotional strain, Beatrice drank a glass of wine in a gulp. "My heart is about to jump out of my chest. It must already look like I'm one step away from the death penalty," the girl thought to herself fearfully. "Speaking of wine, I've had it somewhere before. I know the taste. I need to remember exactly where I drank it." Suddenly the girl's mouth was bleeding. Beatrice staggered and fell to the floor. "What's going on? Has the princess fainted? Has she been poisoned? Has she really died? The Count exclaimed in astonishment. Will you shut up already? Call the doctor and get some antipyretics. Interrogate all the people in the fortress and find the culprit, unless you want to be accused of murdering the princess. With metallic notes in his voice, Carden said to the Count. The Count ordered his subordinates to close all the doors in the manor and not to let anyone out. He also asked that anyone who had touched the wine be brought to him. That's a breach of contract. It shouldn't be like that. You haven't fulfilled your part of the contract yet. The Emperor spoke irritably. Carden kicked the doors of one of the rooms with his foot. Carden carried the girl into the room and gently laid her on the bed. My blood will help relieve the symptoms of the poisoning, mumbled the Emperor. He bit down to bloody his lip and began kissing the girl. It was necessary to make Beatrice swallow his blood. Just try to die. Your body will not be buried in the temple, but will rot like the corpse of a criminal. You cannot die without my permission, whispered the Emperor, holding the girl tightly against him. There is no hope of recovery. She took a lethal dose of meringue, so there is no chance of recovery. I think you should prepare for her funeral. Bowing his head, the doctor told the Emperor. An irritated Carden kicked the healer out of Beatrice's room. I know more than anyone how sad and hard the princess's fate is. You must not die so easily. Stop being silly and wake up. Leaning over the girl, whispered Carden. Since Beatrice's clothes were stained with blood, Carden decided to go through the girl's clothes and find something suitable for her. A small suitcase caught the Emperor's eye. Looking into the suitcase, the Emperor pulled out documents and a small frame. 24 hours later, Beatrice finally opened her eyes. The girl noticed the Emperor beside her. The man looked extremely annoyed. Do you know why I hold this in my hands? Asked the Emperor to Beatrice, showing her the portrait of the blonde-haired girl. How did that portrait end up in Carden's possession? The girl thought fearfully. Beatrice thought that this girl had something to do with the contract, so she brought the portrait with her and hid it between her things. I ask you again, why do you have this portrait? I repeat the Emperor's question. Beatrice knew that if her answer did not satisfy the Emperor, she would face the death penalty. I kept this portrait to leave a memory of Eleanor, said Beatrice. You say you wanted to leave a memory of her? Then tell me yourself what kind of person she is. Leaning over the girl, the Emperor demanded. Beatrice remembered that in the original work, the maid of the Empress Dowager and the main character had such a sandy hair color like the girl in the portrait. Most likely this girl is important to the Emperor. It is because of her that he is bound by treaty. It is the girl, your Majesty's beloved! In an uncertain voice, Beatrice muttered. Carden silently handed Beatrice the portrait of the girl. And really, what's the point of asking that question now? Rest, regain your strength, said a frustrated Carden and left the room. She says Eleanor is my lover. Just as I thought, Princess Valoa is not herself. There's something going on with that woman. Lately, she has been doing things that are uncharacteristic of her nature. The Emperor pondered as he walked down the corridor. The princess looks like someone who has lost her memory. If she doesn't remember Eleanor, then she doesn't know the contents of the contract. And now is my last chance to get my mother back. Such a joy to see you awake, mistress. You know how worried I was when the doctor said you wouldn't get better. Early tears, said Count Gazebon. It's probably thanks to using the princess's method of dosing poison for addictive behavior that I survived. This woman is truly a unique person. Beatrice pondered to herself. You may not believe me, but I had absolutely nothing to do with this, said the Count to the girl. I know that. Beatrice answered him irritably. The girl realized that this man cared not about her health, but about his own fate. If I die on this estate, the only consequence will be the execution of the Earl, that's all. It's as clear as daylight. There's no reason for the Count to kill me. What about those people who had access to the wine that's with them? Beatrice asked the Count. The man reported that all of those people were placed in the dungeon. I promise you that by all means I will find the culprit, and I find him, exclaimed the Count. You don't need to do that. just spread the word that Princess Valoa is dead?" asked Count Beatrice. "There are some pretty cunning and dangerous people trying to take me out. To survive here, I should do something even more devious." Beatrice decided for herself. If she could get into the story of a romance novel, she should live out its plot to the end.